In the dimly lit chambers of the Palazzo Vecchio, where shadows danced across ancient stone walls, Niccolò Machiavelli understood what most men failed to grasp: true power begins not with armies or gold, but with the conquest of one's own mind. The year was 1513, and, as he penned his observations on human nature and political strategy, he discovered principles that would forge mentally unstoppable individuals for centuries to come. The first brutal truth that Machiavelli recognized was that mental weakness masquerades as virtue in a world designed to keep you compliant. Society teaches you to be agreeable, to seek approval, to avoid conflict at all costs. But these teachings are chains that bind your potential. The mentally unstoppable understand that comfort is the enemy of greatness, and that true strength comes from embracing the very discomfort that others flee. Strategy 1: Master the art of strategic ruthlessness. Machiavelli observed that successful leaders possessed what he called virtù, not virtue in the modern sense, but a willingness to do whatever was necessary to achieve their goals. This principle extends far beyond politics into the realm of personal development. The mentally unstoppable person learns to be ruthlessly honest with themselves about their weaknesses, even when this honesty brings pain. Consider the merchant who convinced himself that his business failures were due to market conditions, never acknowledging his poor planning and execution. Month after month, he blamed external forces while his competitors thrived. The mentally unstoppable individual would have conducted a brutal self-assessment within weeks, identifying specific deficiencies and systematically addressing them, regardless of how uncomfortable this process felt. Strategic ruthlessness means cutting away everything that doesn't serve your ultimate purpose, even if it's pleasant or familiar. This includes relationships that drain your energy, habits that waste your time, and beliefs that limit your potential. The weak-minded person keeps these anchors because letting go feels cruel. The mentally unstoppable person understands that true cruelty lies in allowing mediocrity to persist when excellence is possible. In practice, this strategy manifests as the discipline to end conversations that lead nowhere, to decline invitations that don't align with your goals, and to abandon projects that show no promise despite the time already invested. It requires you to become comfortable with being misunderstood, as others will often interpret your focus as coldness or arrogance. Strategy 2: Cultivate calculated paranoia. Machiavelli wrote that it is better to be feared than loved, but he also understood that the greatest fear should be reserved for complacency. The mentally unstoppable develop what can be called calculated paranoia, a systematic anticipation of potential threats and obstacles that prevents them from being caught off guard. This doesn't mean living in constant anxiety, but rather maintaining a heightened awareness of what could go wrong and preparing accordingly. While others operate on the assumption that things will work out, the mentally unstoppable assume that things will go wrong and position themselves to benefit from chaos. A young entrepreneur might spend months developing a business plan, only to discover that a larger company has launched a competing product just before his launch date. The average person would see this as bad luck or unfair competition. The mentally unstoppable individual would have already researched the competitive landscape, identified potential threats, and developed multiple contingency plans. They might have even delayed their launch deliberately, waiting to see what competitors would do first, then positioning their offering as a superior alternative. Calculated paranoia extends to personal relationships as well. While maintaining genuine connections, the mentally unstoppable understand that people's loyalties and circumstances change. They don't take betrayal personally because they've already considered the possibility and protected themselves accordingly. This isn't cynicism, it's practical wisdom that allows them to trust while remaining prepared for disappointment. Strategy 3: Embrace necessary isolation. Machiavelli spent his exile in relative solitude, and it was during this period that he produced his most profound work. The mentally unstoppable understand that periods of isolation are not punishment but opportunity. In a world of constant connectivity and social media validation, the ability to be alone with your thoughts becomes a rare and powerful advantage. Isolation serves multiple purposes for mental development. It forces you to confront your own thoughts without external validation or distraction. It provides the mental space necessary for deep thinking and strategic planning. Most importantly, it builds psychological self-sufficiency, the confidence that you can rely on yourself regardless of external circumstances. The weak-minded person fears isolation because it forces them to face uncomfortable truths about themselves. They fill every moment with entertainment, social interaction, or busy work to avoid confronting their own inadequacies. The mentally unstoppable actively seek solitude as a laboratory for self-improvement. This doesn't mean becoming antisocial or abandoning relationships. Instead, it means being selective about when and how you engage with others, ensuring that social interaction serves a purpose rather than merely filling time. It means being comfortable in your own company and using solitude productively for reflection, planning, and skill development. A successful executive might deliberately arrive early to meetings, not just to appear punctual, but to have quiet time for mental preparation. A student might choose to study alone rather than in groups, recognizing that group study often becomes social time disguised as productivity. In both cases, they're leveraging isolation as a tool for enhancement rather than viewing it as something to be avoided. Part 2, The Mechanics of Mental Domination. As Machiavelli delved deeper into the nature of power, he recognized that true dominance required understanding not just strategy, but human psychology itself. The mentally unstoppable don't simply react to circumstances, they shape the very environment in which they operate through psychological mastery. Strategy 4, Master the psychology of preemptive action. Machiavelli advocated for striking first when conflict was inevitable, understanding that the aggressor holds significant advantages. In mental warfare, whether against external obstacles or internal limitations, the same principle applies. The mentally unstoppable don't wait for problems to fully manifest before taking action. This strategy requires developing the ability to read situations and people with exceptional accuracy. Small signs often precede major developments, and those who learn to interpret these signals can position themselves advantageously before others even recognize that change is coming. Consider a professional who notices subtle shifts in company politics, perhaps a new executive asking probing questions about their department, or budget discussions that seem to circle around their area of responsibility. The average employee might dismiss these as routine business activities. The mentally unstoppable individual recognizes potential threats and begins strengthening their position immediately, perhaps by documenting their achievements, building stronger relationships with key decision-makers, or even discreetly exploring other opportunities. Preemptive action also applies to personal development. Instead of waiting until a weakness becomes a crisis, the mentally unstoppable identify potential problem areas early and address them systematically. If they notice difficulty with public speaking, they don't wait until a major presentation is required, they seek training and practice opportunities immediately. This approach requires courage because it often means taking action based on intuition and incomplete information. Others may view such behavior as paranoid or unnecessary. However, the mentally unstoppable understand that the cost of early action is almost always less than the cost of late reaction. Strategy 5, Develop emotional immunity. Machiavelli observed that effective leaders couldn't afford to be swayed by emotion when making critical decisions. The mentally unstoppable extend this principle to all areas of life, developing what can be called emotional immunity, the ability to acknowledge emotions without being controlled by them. This doesn't mean becoming emotionless or uncaring. Rather, it means creating psychological distance between emotional responses and decision-making processes. Emotions provide valuable information about situations, but they should inform rather than control your actions. The process of developing emotional immunity begins with recognition. Most people are unaware of how thoroughly emotions influence their decisions. They make choices based on immediate feelings rather than long-term strategy, then rationalize these decisions afterward. The mentally unstoppable learn to pause between stimulus and response, creating space for rational evaluation. Practical techniques for building emotional immunity include regularly examining your emotional triggers, practicing delayed responses to emotionally charged situations, and developing multiple perspectives on challenging circumstances. When someone criticizes your work, for example, the immediate emotional response might be defensiveness or anger. The emotionally immune individual acknowledges these feelings but focuses on extracting any valid insights from the criticism while discarding the emotional charge. This strategy proves particularly valuable in relationships and negotiations. While others react emotionally to provocations or perceived slights, the mentally unstoppable remain focused on their objectives. They might appear cold or calculating to those who operate primarily on emotion, but this perceived coldness often leads to better outcomes for all parties involved. Strategy 6, Practice strategic vulnerability. Paradoxically, Machiavelli understood that apparent weakness could be a form of strength when used strategically. The mentally unstoppable learn to reveal vulnerability selectively, using it as a tool for building trust, gathering information, or lowering others' defenses. Strategic vulnerability differs dramatically from genuine weakness. It's a calculated decision to appear less capable or threatening than you actually are, creating opportunities that wouldn't exist if others perceived your true strength. This requires exceptional self-awareness and emotional control, as you must be secure enough in your actual capabilities to temporarily appear deficient. A negotiator might reveal a minor concern about their ability to meet certain terms, encouraging the other party to offer concessions or reveal their own limitations. An employee might ask for guidance on a topic they actually understand well, building rapport with a superior while gathering intelligence about the superior's thinking process and priorities. The key to strategic vulnerability lies in choosing what to reveal and to whom. You never expose core weaknesses that could genuinely damage your position. Instead, you reveal peripheral concerns or limitations that humanize you without compromising your essential strength. This requires constantly evaluating what others need to see to trust you, work with you, or underestimate you in ways that serve your purposes. This strategy also applies to self-development. Sometimes the fastest path to mastery involves admitting ignorance and seeking help, even when pride suggests you should struggle alone. The mentally unstoppable recognize that temporary vulnerability in service of learning creates long-term strength that far outweighs any short-term embarrassment. Strategy 7. Control information flow. Machiavelli recognized that information is power, and controlling its flow provides significant advantages in any conflict or competition. The mentally unstoppable become masters of information management, carefully controlling what they reveal, when they reveal it, and to whom. This strategy operates on multiple levels. On a basic level, it means being selective about sharing personal information, plans, or concerns. While others overshare on social media or in casual conversations, the mentally unstoppable maintain strategic privacy about their goals, methods, and challenges. More sophisticated information control involves understanding what others need to know and timing revelations for maximum impact. A job candidate might reveal their other offers only after establishing value in the interviewer's mind. An entrepreneur might discuss their product's limitations only after demonstrating its strengths and market potential. The flip side of controlling outgoing information involves maximizing incoming intelligence. The mentally unstoppable become exceptional listeners and observers, gathering far more information than they reveal. They ask thoughtful questions that encourage others to share insights, concerns, and plans. They pay attention to nonverbal cues and indirect communications that others miss. Information control also requires understanding the difference between transparency and effectiveness. While society often promotes radical honesty and openness, the mentally unstoppable recognize that indiscriminate sharing can undermine their ability to achieve their goals. They're honest in their dealings but strategic about what truths to emphasize and when to reveal them. This doesn't mean being deceptive or manipulative in harmful ways. Instead, it means recognizing that all communication involves choices about what to emphasize, and making those choices deliberately rather than unconsciously. Part 3. The consolidation of unshakable power. In his final years, Machiavelli understood that temporary victories meant nothing without the ability to maintain and consolidate gains. The truly mentally unstoppable don't simply overcome individual challenges, they build systems and mindsets that make them increasingly powerful over time. Strategy 8. Institutionalize your advantages. Machiavelli observed that successful rulers didn't rely solely on personal charisma or temporary circumstances. They built institutions and systems that perpetuated their power even when they weren't personally present to enforce it. The mentally unstoppable apply this principle to their personal development, creating systems that ensure continued growth and advantage regardless of changing circumstances. Institutionalizing advantages begins with identifying what makes you successful and, then, building processes to maintain and expand those success factors. If your strength lies in gathering and analyzing information, you might develop systematic methods for staying informed about your industry, maintaining a network of insightful contacts, and regularly updating your knowledge base. A sales professional who succeeds through relationship building doesn't rely solely on natural charisma. They develop systems for tracking interactions, remembering personal details about clients, following up consistently, and continuously expanding their network. These systems ensure that their advantages compound over time rather than depending on daily effort and memory. The institutionalization process also involves creating accountability mechanisms that maintain high standards even when motivation wanes. The mentally unstoppable understand that willpower is unreliable, so they build external structures that enforce positive behaviors. This might include regular assessments, peer accountability groups, or automatic consequences for failing to meet standards. Perhaps most importantly, institutionalizing advantages means documenting and systematizing your successful approaches so they can be repeated and improved. While others rely on intuition and hope to repeat past successes, the mentally unstoppable analyze what worked, why it worked, and how to do it better next time. Strategy 9. Build anti-fragile mental architecture beyond mere resilience. Machiavelli understood that the most effective leaders actually grew stronger from challenges and setbacks. Modern thinkers would call this anti-fragility, the ability to benefit from disorder and stress rather than simply surviving it. The mentally unstoppable designed their thinking patterns and response systems to become stronger under pressure. Anti-fragile mental architecture begins with reframing adversity as information and opportunity rather than mere obstacle. When faced with criticism, rejection, or failure, the mentally unstoppable's first question isn't "how do I defend myself?" but "what can I learn from this experience?" This shift in perspective transforms every setback into fuel for improvement. Building anti-fragility also requires developing multiple capabilities and options so that the failure of any single approach doesn't create crisis. A business owner might develop expertise in several different industries, maintain relationships across various sectors, and keep multiple revenue streams active. If one area experiences problems, others can compensate while the troubled area is rebuilt. The process extends to mental and emotional patterns as well. Instead of avoiding difficult emotions or challenging situations, the mentally unstoppable deliberately expose themselves to manageable levels of stress and discomfort. This controlled exposure builds psychological strength and reduces the impact of unavoidable future challenges. Anti-fragile individuals also cultivate what Machiavelli might have called profitable paranoia, the ability to see opportunity in apparent threats. When regulations change in their industry, they look for ways to turn compliance requirements into competitive advantages. When economic downturns occur, they position themselves to acquire assets at reduced prices or to serve market needs that others abandon. Strategy 10. Master the art of strategic patience. Perhaps the most difficult strategy for modern individuals to master, strategic patience represents the culmination of mental unstoppability. Machiavelli understood that timing often mattered more than effort, and that premature action could destroy years of preparation. The mentally unstoppable develop an almost supernatural ability to wait for the right moment while maintaining readiness to act decisively when that moment arrives. Strategic patience differs from passivity or procrastination. It's active waiting, using periods of apparent inaction to gather information, build capabilities, and position for optimal timing. While others rush into action to feel productive, the strategically patient individual recognizes that some goals require extensive preparation and precise timing to achieve. This strategy proves particularly challenging in an instant gratification culture that rewards visible activity over thoughtful preparation. Social media and modern business culture often penalize reflection in favor of constant action. The mentally unstoppable resist these pressures, understanding that sustainable success often requires periods of invisible preparation. Strategic patience manifests in various ways. An entrepreneur might spend months researching a market before launching a product, resisting pressure to act quickly. A job seeker might turn down mediocre opportunities while building skills and networks for an exceptional position. An investor might hold cash for extended periods, waiting for genuine opportunities while others chase marginal returns. The key to strategic patience lies in maintaining clear objectives while remaining flexible about timing and methods. You know what you want to achieve and why it matters, but you're willing to wait for conditions that maximize your chances of success. This requires exceptional confidence in your judgment and the courage to appear inactive when others are bustling with activity. Strategic patience also involves recognizing the difference between delay and avoidance. The mentally unstoppable use waiting periods productively, continuously improving their position while monitoring conditions. They're ready to act immediately when circumstances align, having used their patience to build overwhelming advantages. The integration of mental unstoppability as Machiavelli completed his observations on power and human nature, he recognized that these strategies formed an integrated system rather than a collection of isolated techniques. The mentally unstoppable don't simply apply individual strategies when convenient, they weave these approaches into a comprehensive worldview that guides all their actions and decisions. The foundation lies in accepting that the world operates according to principles of power rather than fairness or sentiment. This doesn't mean becoming callous or cruel, but rather recognizing that good intentions without effective execution rarely produce positive results. The mentally unstoppable focus on developing the capabilities necessary to achieve their goals while maintaining ethical standards appropriate to their values. The mechanical aspects involve building systematic approaches to common challenges. Rather than hoping things work out or relying on inspiration, they develop reliable methods for gathering information, making decisions, managing relationships, and responding to adversity. These methods become increasingly sophisticated over time, creating compound advantages that separate them from those who rely on talent or luck alone. The consolidation phase ensures that temporary victories become permanent advantages. This requires thinking beyond immediate success to build sustainable systems and capabilities. The mentally unstoppable understand that true security comes not from avoiding challenge but from becoming so capable that you can handle whatever challenges arise. Throughout this process, the individual maintains what Machiavelli would have recognized as virtue, the ability to adapt methods to circumstances while remaining true to fundamental principles. They're neither rigidly dogmatic nor randomly flexible. Instead, they possess clear values and objectives that guide their strategic choices while remaining tactically adaptable. The journey toward mental unstoppability requires abandoning comforting illusions about how the world works and accepting responsibility for creating the life you desire. It means developing capabilities that others find uncomfortable or unnecessary. Most importantly, it requires the courage to think and act differently from the crowd, even when this difference makes you appear cold, calculating, or unsympathetic to those who prioritize feeling good over being effective. Yet for those who complete this transformation, the rewards extend far beyond personal success. The mentally unstoppable become forces for positive change in their environments, capable of achieving goals that benefit themselves and others. They develop the strength to support those they care about and the wisdom to use their power responsibly. Machiavelli's insights remain relevant because they address fundamental aspects of human nature that haven't changed despite technological and social evolution. The desire for security, recognition, and achievement still drives human behavior. The dynamics of competition, cooperation, and conflict still shape outcomes in every field of endeavor. Those who master these 10 brutal strategies don't become perfect or invulnerable. They become adaptive, resilient, and increasingly capable of shaping their circumstances rather than being shaped by them. In a world that often rewards conformity and punishes independent thinking, they develop the mental architecture necessary to pursue ambitious goals while maintaining their integrity. The path is neither easy nor comfortable, but, for those willing to do what others won't, it offers the possibility of achieving what others can't. In the end, mental unstoppability isn't about dominating others but about refusing to be dominated by circumstances, emotions, or limitations that can be overcome through systematic effort and strategic thinking. As Machiavelli understood centuries ago, the mind that refuses to accept defeat, learns from every experience, and continuously adapts its strategies becomes a force that shapes the world rather than merely reacting to it. This is the ultimate goal of mental unstoppability, not just surviving in a challenging world, but thriving while helping to create the conditions for others to thrive as well.